The thought that it might be a struggle for us to have children never really entered either of our minds.
Mm-hmm.
We were living in a pretty idealistic place when we started talking about having children. So we tried for several months, and really I just was at a routine exam, and the doctor asked if we were trying, and I said yes. And when she found out how long we had been trying, she suggested that we go see a specialist.
How's this? Good?
This one, it looks great.
I still remember the very first time that I met her. We were working at Busch Gardens, and she was working in a magic show, and I still remember she had this white robe on, and she was reading a book in the green room, and I walk in, and I just started having this, I just hit off this little conversation with her. And I remember we started talking about God like that.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
And I went outside in the hallway to my best friend. I said, hey, I want you to go in that room. That's the girl I'm gonna marry someday.
Alex and I just loved being married. I mean, we truly took the idea of like, we're gonna have a family, but we put that on the back burner because we wanted to enjoy each other for a little while. We traveled the world.
Yeah.
We had what I would say is an ideal marriage.
It's from the movies. I mean, the
yeah,
marriage,
we were
yes.
really happy.
Yes.
But I think, so the natural progression is after we kind of got that fun and, that marriage time under our belts, we were ready to have a family. I think from the time I was a child, I had the dream of becoming a mother. My mom tells stories about me with my baby dolls and just how I treated them almost as if they were real babies, just caring for them and nurturing them. I grew up with an amazing mom who just went above and beyond to really raise me and nurture me in a way that I just really wanted to emulate her. And so that has always been a dream of mine for as long as I can remember. Alex and I both had some tests run, and we didn't expect anything. We expected him to say, oh, keep trying, it's normal, this takes time. But at the end of the appointment, he basically sat us down and said, you will not have children naturally.
We talk about a curveball being thrown to you. So we sat down with the doctor, and he said, you basically have a better chance of getting struck by lightning than to conceive a child naturally. So
I remember in that appointment, like it was coming at me, and it was almost like I wasn't even in the room. I was hearing him say that we weren't going to be able to have children naturally, and so immediately I feel like out of shock I just kind of drove into, okay, well, how are we going to do this?
it's like getting hit by a Mike Tyson punch. I
Yeah.
mean, it really is. I mean, it knocks you off your feet.
Okay, well, there's the bad news, but I mean, there has to be an answer.
Mm-hmm.
He basically said, your only option is the most extreme kind of fertility treatment, and that will be in vitro fertilization. And even one step further was that they were going to do a procedure called ICSI.
One of my favorite verses is, if you have the faith the size of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. And I truly believe that, whatever that mountain might be. So I think going into this, I was like, the doctor can tell us we have a 1 in a million chance, but God's bigger than that. At the time, we had just started a business, and we were working our second job at Busch Gardens, and so we had a lunch line at Busch Gardens where we can go and buy lunch for $1.50. And so I would go and buy my lunch for $1.50, and then I would buy us dinner at the lunch line and bring that home and save it and eat the $1.50 lunch from Busch Gardens for dinner as well, just so we can save whatever we can save to try to make this work. And I remember we left Busch Gardens one day, and we were talking about the financial burden that this was going to put on us. And I said, look, we're going to go through this one time. That's it.
So we did one round of in vitro, and it was physically taxing, emotionally taxing, everything that you hear that it is, but we fully expected that it would work. And so we knew when I had the pregnancy test at the doctor, and we knew that they would call us about 2 hours later. So we were spending time at a park.
We waited over there, and they gave us a phone call, and they said, your beta number is up. It's not where it should be, but it's up. And then the next day, we got another call.
We had to go back for blood every day. And the next day, the phone call was, the number went down. It was basically what they call a chemical pregnancy. So it didn't work. I felt empty, you know. I truly expected that it would work. I had done my due diligence, and I had done the things that we were supposed to do. And, you know, Alex, being a great husband, he wanted to have children, but he wanted me to be full, and he wanted me to be fulfilled. And he wanted it for me, I think, even more than he wanted it for himself. Although Alex had said, we can only do this once, I immediately went back into planning mode, and I immediately said, I think we should try one more time.
Yep.
After a couple more rounds of in vitro, we finally went in for a blood test, and we were pregnant. We went in and had the ultrasound. Everything looked great. We
saw the heartbeat. Tears of joy.
We were motoring on, and we were absolutely.
The doctors were
thrilled.
Everybody was filled with joy.
It was a celebration beyond anything we'd ever experienced. And then I came home one day, and I just started not feeling good. I started having cramps, and I knew something was wrong. And we went in for an ultrasound. And I could just tell it was taking him a long time. And he finally said, there's no heartbeat. And I think for me, that was the point where I just said to God, like, how much are you gonna let us go through? Like, why would you allow us to have this joy, only to take it away? I truly did not have the strength to talk to God. I felt like there was a wall between us. I felt like there was a yearning and a desire inside of me, and I felt like it was God-given, but then I felt like it just wasn't happening for us. We have 4 miscarriages. So, you have a 5% chance of miscarrying once you've seen the heartbeat, and this was happening to us over and over. It happened 4 times. You're told that you can't have a baby, but yet you're getting pregnant, and then you're not able to keep the babies. I just kept falling deeper and deeper into despair.
And I think you start asking yourself, are we doing the right thing?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we're not meant to have a child. Like I said before, if you have the faith the size of a mustard seed, you can make it work. I always said that to her. These are things I always kept on pushing. If you just have faith, and I believe God just put that in my heart to push on to her, that, yeah, we're going to keep going.
I look back on all that we went through, and I realized that, Satan comes like a thief in the night to kill and destroy, and he did over and over and over for us. But my anger towards God was wrong. It was God who was there for me, filling me up through Alex and through an amazing network of family and friends who, they went to battle for us. One of the few ways that I was still hearing God was through the Joy FM. And I was listening to the Joy FM, and there was an interview with Christy Knuckles.
Worship's always been the core of Watermark. And that's just my love, and especially getting to lead women. I love that.
Something about her voice resonated with me. I didn't know what it was, but I went home and I remember Googling her. And I realized that she had been part of a group called Watermark. And I had seen Watermark in concert when I was in college. I start sifting through my old CDs from college and I find this CD, All Things New, from Watermark. And I start listening to the CD, completely innocent. And I get to this track called Glory Baby. And I knew that she had gone through a miscarriage. The lyrics of that song spoke to me in a way that I felt like I finally could let God back in. The lyrics, I will rest in knowing heaven is your home and it's all you'll ever know.
I will rest in knowing heaven is your home and it's all you'll ever know.
And I just held on to that and felt like that's where my peace is right now with these miscarriages. These babies that we've lost, they don't have to know the suffering that I am experiencing right now. And that heaven's lullabies will be the only lullabies they hear. And I started realizing that instead of going away from God, I needed to find peace and find strength there. And that's when I started going to the Bible and saying, I don't need to go to the internet to find people who have related. And I'm reading stories of Abraham and Sarah and Zechariah and Elizabeth. And then I came upon Hannah. And it was like this brilliant ray of light. I mean, here I am like relating to these women and men from thousands of years ago. And I felt like God had just placed those stories there for me. We were learned to hold back our emotions a lot because a positive pregnancy test didn't necessarily mean that for us.
Which is frustrating because there's nothing more that we want to feel than absolute joy of this gift, but still at the same time there's
Apprehension.
Yes, definite apprehension. So then we make it to 8 weeks and 10 weeks.
We got to 12 weeks and Alex was out of town and my parents were out of town and I started bleeding. And at that point, I called a friend and I said, can you please take me to the hospital? I'm having a miscarriage. So we went to the hospital and they scheduled us to do an ultrasound. And so my girlfriend went in there with me and they wouldn't tell me anything. She was watching the monitor as they did the ultrasound and we came out of there and she had the biggest smile on her face. And she was like, the baby is doing backflips. He's jumping around. Everything's fine. But we did finally make it through the first trimester and we started to feel really, really confident. And thank the Lord, we made it 9 more months and gave birth to a baby boy who was 7 rounds of in vitro fertilization in the making. And honestly, I mean, the most unlikely of scenarios. And here he is. Barring what we had been through, we accepted the fact that God had one child for us, and we were over the moon about that. So 3 years went by. One day I just started not feeling good. So I just ran to the doctor one day randomly, I think while Enzo was at school, and Alex was at home working, and I went to the doctor, and the first thing they asked me is there any chance you could be pregnant? And I just laughed out loud, and they were kind of taken back. They were like, what? Because this is just my GP. And I'm like, oh, if you knew what we had been through,
1 in a million.
You wouldn't even ask that question, you know? So she said, well, we have to do this test just in case. So they had me do a urine test, and she came back in the room and brought 4 other nurses with her. And I'm thinking to myself, something's really wrong. Like, she brought all these nurses in, and she said, well, you definitely need an antibiotic. And she said, but I want to let you know that there's something else. And I was like, what? I mean, I felt myself starting to cry. And she's like, you're pregnant. And I said, you're wrong. You have to test again. There is no way I'm pregnant. And all the girls, they had come in because they were so excited to see my reaction. For real? Like, after everything that we've been through, we're pregnant, no in vitro, no medication, no timing, nothing.
She comes home and
Yeah.
she comes into where I'm working, and she says, I have some news. And I just had a feeling. I just was like, you're pregnant.
That's the first thing out of his mouth, the most unlikely response.
I just had a feeling, and this is how unlikely it is. So we called our doctor who had been through this whole process with us, and we told him, I just want to let you know that we're pregnant. And he's like, you need
to come here
You need to hop in the
tomorrow."
car, because I don't believe you. It's not possible. So sure enough, we went, and he checked everything and said, sure enough, you're pregnant.
And I can honestly say it was so different from my other pregnancies because from the word go, I didn't worry. I didn't have a single concern. I was not worried about miscarriage. I just felt like God had handed us this second miracle, and finally I was able to say, he's in control and he's got this. And we gave birth to a healthy baby boy, Easton, who is an answered prayer, to a prayer that we weren't necessarily even praying. It just truly was God's way of saying,
God's
just
bigger.
let me do my
bigger
thing.
than our problems.
Yeah.
Bigger than we can ever imagine.
You want to show me your room? Hi, can you say hi? Alex had that bold faith that he needed to help me, but I feel like at the end of the day, God had a message for me, and it was truly about control. I just had never, I grew up in the church, and I had always done the things I was supposed to do, but when it came down to it, there was really nothing in my life that I hadn't had control of, that I hadn't had to surrender completely to God. And I feel like this may be the only thing I experience in my life that truly, you can try with medicine, you can try with science, but truly, God is in control of the situation. And to realize that and to come to that understanding and say, you know what, I don't have to have control of everything because He has got ultimate control over my life, and that's better than anything that I could ever do on my own anyway. That was huge for me. And just realizing too, I had a lot of guilt when I was going through the process, guilt that my faith wasn't strong enough, guilt that I wasn't responding the way that I should have. You know what? It's okay for me to cry out to God. I don't have to be this perfect Christian who always has all the answers, but I can be someone who says, God, help me in my time of need. I can't do this. And He will come through. If I could say anything to someone going through infertility, and specifically a woman, it's that you're not alone. And not just that there are other women out there who have experienced and other couples who have experienced what we have experienced, but that God is with you every step of the way. He will not leave you in your time of need.
Whether we have had a child or whether we went through the road of adoption, I think it would have totally worked out 100%, because I think God has a plan for us. God is a 10 times better storyteller than I will ever be. And His stories are complete. His stories are beautiful. No matter what your path is, just believe that His story is going to be complete in you. My name is Alex, this is Jocelyn, and this is our Joy Story.